Since the first years of diplomatic contacts between Russia and BRICS, your partners have developed cooperation and a strategic partnership. What do you think about the next stage of Russian cooperation? An even stronger partnership and closer integration in all areas. That is what our presidents want. Over the previous years, our BRICS partners have made it possible to continue making progress in every direction, across all our agencies, in industry, in the security sector, energy, political coordination, and in all economic and investment spheres. I see continued progress. Has BRICS become the center of the multipolar world? Yes. Do you have any idea why? Of course. There is growing interest from countries that are not currently members of the BRICS family. Today, the BRICS family consists of 27 countries. They account for more than 40% of the world's population and more than 1/3 of the global economy. I believe this partnership will continue to develop successfully. Returning to your meeting with Marco Rubio, you said that Russia and the United States had reached understandings, but Ukraine and the Europeans did not agree. How do you assess the meetings involving Kushner and Witkoff and the possibility of negotiations in the future? Do you think the Anchorage process has completely failed? First of all, I think you need to clarify who exactly says it has completely failed. We came to Anchorage with proposals that had been prepared and submitted by President Trump previously, and we started working on them. As President Trump himself repeatedly said, there were issues and circumstances, but we considered them and agreed. So, if there are proposals and there is agreement, then I believe we fulfilled our obligations regarding Anchorage. President Trump said many times, including in Anchorage, that these were his proposals and that they represented a compromise. We agreed to them, understanding that any agreement must contain an element of compromise. But President Trump also said that Zelensky would do what he had to do. That did not happen. I mentioned President Trump's most recent remarks yesterday. First, he said this in Alaska during the press conference. He spoke about it again 3 days after returning. He described the Anchorage agreements in very positive terms, saying that everything had been settled and that only one small issue remained to be addressed. That was our understanding as well. We expected that if we accepted the American proposal, it would make it possible to stop the fighting and bring everyone to the negotiating table. The political details would then be worked out later. So, if Anchorage has failed, it is because Ukraine refused to do what it had agreed to. The European Union declared that the proposal was unacceptable and for a long time exerted pressure on the American side. Its representatives and experts tried for a long time to influence the U.S. administration. Eventually, they adopted a declaration that fully reflected Ukraine's position. They expressed complete support for Ukraine, including its territorial integrity, while ignoring the fact that a large part of what used to be Ukrainian territory is now inhabited by people whom the current Ukrainian authorities call terrorists. Their new commander has even referred to them as non-humans in his latest statements, The G7 wants this regime to regain those territories that are now part of the Russian Federation. That means Crimea, Donbass, and Novorossiya. But if we look deeper, Macron has already said that there is now no more anchorage, that the United States has stepped back. Meanwhile, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Sybiha says that the anchorage agreement has now been destroyed. If this perception spreads to the Americans, what can we say? Of course, we want a political and diplomatic settlement. But we will achieve our objectives regardless. The latest comments demonstrate an aggressive rejection of the American proposals. At the same time, Zelensky continues to receive enormous quantities of weapons, including drones, which are now being used to attack civilians in Russia in an attempt to undermine stability in the country. A significant part of the support for Zelensky comes from American assistance, not only through weapons sold to Europe and then transferred to Ukraine, but also through intelligence support, Starlink, and communications networks that are used on the battlefield. That is the current situation. Our position is obvious. We are ready. We have done what was required on our part. But regardless of what happens in the other direction, as President Putin has repeatedly emphasized, our objectives will be achieved.
Но задачи, поставленные президентом Путиным в июне 2024